Và bây giờ tiếp theo chúng ta sẽ đến với phiên là ZK Use Case in the Identity, Privacy and Programmability of Money. Vì sao cái phiên này rất là quan trọng và thiết yếu? Bởi vì tiền thông minh bảo mật là tương lai của tài chính web 3. Thì phiên này chúng ta sẽ đi sâu vào stablecoin và các yếu tố riêng tư của nó. So, up next we have the panel ZK Use Case Identity, Privacy and Programmability of Money. Why is this essential? Private smart money is the future of the Web3 finance, and this session will take the deep dive into the stablecoin and privacy features. Và xin trân trọng giới thiệu các diễn giả Gwendolyn Regina, Abhishek, Jeffrey Chui và Z-Steam. Please welcome our panelists, Gwendolyn Regina, Abhishek, Jeffrey Chui and Z-Steam.
Check. Okay, let's get started. So to begin, I'm gonna start giving out a little context, what's going on in the industry right now in terms of ZK stablecoin. Little context, right? But I'm not gonna go too deep into it. And just then we're gonna start with the introduction after. So stablecoins has, so far for the past many years, has been the backbone of the Ethereum economy. It's power, billions and billions of on-chain liquidity. It offers a way for your user to have a stable way to trade, to settle, and to participate in DeFi. But recently, right, as you know, of the recent event with Roman Storm, of a lot of things, privacy is being attacked. We are attacked by institutions, by authorities that infringe upon your rights, your constitutional rights. And so today, we'll be talking about this ZK technology, which is something that potentially can offer a way out, a way to actually for us to be able to meet compliance requirements and also like protect our privacy, protect our identity, while still being able to meet all of these compliance requirements from different regulators globally. And for your own context, which is the local government as well. So I would like to quick introductions from the speakers over here, the panelists, on who you are, what you do, and what's your project is doing, what's you working on, right? So everyone gets a turn, right? Starting with Jeffrey.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back again. It's been a couple years since being back in this building. Still as beautiful as before. I will have to say I wear two hats in the region. First is I lead the foundation for Hedera. My role there is to bring 3 C's, so capital, community, and commerce, to the ecosystem of builders. And that's what I really focus on. Vietnam is a big market for that. The second hat I wear in Hong Kong, I lead the Web3 Association. It's very relevant for today's conversation because we as a jurisdiction not only have a stablecoin ordinance that has just been recently launched, but also looking at making sure privacy and cross-border transfer of information, capital markets, is the highest levels of security and compliance. So looking forward to sharing and talking with my panelists today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abhishek. I'm co-founder of Caddy Finance. At Caddy Finance, we are bringing institutional yields on Bitcoin. I've been in the crypto space for over 5 years, predominantly working with ZK, RWA, and now building in DeFi. Super excited to be here. I love the energy that is there in the Vietnam ecosystem, and pumped to be here.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Gwen and I lead partnerships in Asia Pacific at Horizen Labs. Horizen Labs is the labs co behind Horizen and L3 blockchain and base, as well as ZK Verify, a ZK proof verification layer designed to help scale, reducing cost by 90%. And my background has been across Web 2 and Web 3 the last 20 years or so, aging myself here, but last 20 years or so. As a founder, I sold a company, I've started a few stuff, I did a lot of investments as well, and most recently, prior to Horizen Labs, I led and founded the BNB Chain Grants and Investment Program, as well as did some partnerships at Binance and BNB.
Sounds good. So that's the introduction of all the panelists today. And so we're gonna get right into the first questions. And to be honest, I want you to speak your mind, right? Don't be, basically what you know, speak to the extent of your knowledge and don't be afraid to voice your opinion. First questions. It's going to be about the current state of ZK tech. So I want you to tell me, do you think right now, with the current ZK tech right now, we can meet the regulatory requirement of regulators in regards to KYC, AML, or do you think we can offer something above and beyond? We can beat own expectation. Tell me. You can start with you, Jeff.
Yeah, maybe just quickly, yes. No, the technology is there. I don't want to throw it on my regulator peers, but supervisory technology is very politicized. And the majority of supervisory tech is actually Western created. And so in a jurisdiction like Vietnam, like mainland China, it can get a little bit sensitive with who you use for supervisory tech. And so I think this is a really good opportunity for builders out here to really focus on taking ZK technology and then applying it locally for the requirements of local regulators, especially in Vietnam. So that isn't what I have to say. And the second thing is, traditionally in the past, there's a trade-off, right? So in Web 2 compliance, you can have high compliance, but you give up user data. Or you can have user data protection, but then there's no access properly for regulators. So ZKP is the only way of solving that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree there, right? Like when you're typically going and doing your KYC AML, it's just because you want to identify that you don't belong into those a set of people who's participating in illicit activities, right? So the traditionally whatever KYC AML exists is where you send or give some data and they have their own compliances and store it for a while. Using these ZK technology, which is gonna abstract or don't share your information with the institutions, but then the real problem is global adoption. Like somewhere I feel like, how is these information being shared across different countries? Because the fundamental thesis of AML is just to kind of identify the illicit activities that are happening, and how are these countries sharing their information across, they're basically considering how exactly they're sharing. Like I think in the previous chat they were discussing on how exactly data from Vietnam is shared with Europe or US, right? So technologies like this kind of enable it, but regulations will definitely catch up. So somewhere I feel like always technology leads and regulation is behind. And I can see even in Vietnam, like there are some solutions coming out. Typically, for example, SGID, Singapore Identity, which uses ZK and ZK for AML, and Estonia ID as well. So yeah.
I know you want people to be honest, but unfortunately my answer is also yes. I think, but to add on a little bit, I think the question regarding zero knowledge proofs in the world right now is that the tech is there. Regulations haven't caught up, but also the companies and the surrounding ecosystem of people providing the services to these, say, governments and enterprises are not there yet. So there are already companies obviously existing, but it's about education, it's about going out there, it's about partnerships, it's about consultative approaches that is needed before this can really take off.
Yeah, just a quick comments from myself to the panelists. Vietnam is actually very forward thinking in terms of adopting ZK. There's actually a project going on right now with the Ministry of Police using ZK.
Tell us more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one. Basically they want to, because right now in Vietnam everyone has an ID and it's like centralized ID now. And the way they want to do is actually provide ZK proof. So for any companies that needs to verify that the user is actually above 18, like for example, buying a cigarettes, buying a certain items that require you to be above 18, then you can use their system to verify. So, but very similar to your opinion is there's very little supply chain here. So very little providers, very little local, the local solutions very lacking at the moment. So then it's still is like experimental phase. People are very cautious on adopting it. But if you have a chat with ZK passport team, they're actually very surprised they managed to be able to verify Vietnamese passport.
Oh, so ZK Passport is the one working the police?
No. It's a local project.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's called NDA.
Yes,
yeah?
it's an NDA, chain. But any chain is like for any chain is a partnership between a public and private sector. Yeah.
But I think on that note, I think it's really important to separate ZK technology and decentralization, because you can have a ZK solution in a centralized solution.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yes, this pilot is great, but to the core and ethos and primitives of blockchain, Ethereum, Foundation, etc., and even Hedera, the idea of decentralization, the sharing of the data and selective disclosure on information is really, really important, because you don't want the storage and the computation of the smart contracts managing that data to be centralized. But you can use ZKP in a decentralized manner to share that information. I think that's really an important aspect to differentiate.
Jeffrey, you mean you can use ZK Verify because we're decentralized?
True. Yes, you can.
Sounds good. We need to go to the next questions, but I encourage you guys to explore more. For the second questions, it's going to be about standardization. Just like every other piece of technology out there, there's going to be the core technology and there's going to be different implementation, right? So what are your thoughts on standardization? Do we have standardization in terms of ZK implementation right now? Or who should be leading it? If there should be one, who should be leading this effort to define, like, this is the standardized way. If you want to build something, you're free to do so, but then this is standardized.
I think this is a new war right now in standardization, because money is essentially political, right? You are looking at the countries having had their reign, and control, as we all know, and now we have, stable coins kind of putting up a very good fight. But right now, then the war is in Web3. We know Circle is doing interesting things, right, with the cross CCTP, I believe, right, and a bunch of other kind of enterprises and organizations looking at things. I don't know where this world will go, because at one hand, if we do say that, okay, let's recommend and support one entity, for example, let's say Circle, then we are indirectly and actually directly supporting USD, hegemony to some extent, right? So then that brings up a whole another like geopolitical kind of question and topics, which some people completely disagree. But at the same time, if you go to localization and local stablecoins, you're kind of semi-defeating a purpose, which is where standardization comes in. And we're still, I think, very early in kind of looking at how you can really encourage that. So I don't have an answer to that, but I do think it's a new war.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to, I totally agree with Gwen here. Like, we are very new into it. Just to kind of give retrospect on earlier, I was in identity space, and you had like so many companies which are coming up with their own standard. But then IDEN 3 came in and said, oh, let's just stick to this standard so that every data that goes or generates is interoperable with everyone, so that you can migrate your data if there is a need for it, right? I genuinely think there is a solution, and it will come towards that in the coming days. And I also think that stablecoins, like which are leading like in Circles or Tether, can actually come up with standardization which can help other ecosystem stablecoins to stick to that template and then distribute as well.
So you're almost recommending like we have these big players lead the way?
I mean, I would say like it kind of, again, becomes monopoly. Like, you have to have a higher body, which is like kind of saying regulatory body, I would say, which is kind of saying, oh, this is the format that you should kind of go around with. That's the thought I have. As a technical person, I can retrospect that.
Maybe I'll cover from two angles, right? So starting with the Hedera side, I can't imagine how difficult it is when you're looking at people applying for ecosystem support, especially from the zero knowledge proof solution side. How many different ways of the same way you can do something, like put into a grant, put into like a request for support, and I find that the issue about standardization is not about the business model or et cetera. It's about cryptography. It's like there is no necessarily standard in how you manage the cryptography, but you can standardize the mechanism in how you use the data after the cryptographic proof is actually developed or issued or actually made immutable. So I think that's really important also to differentiate. So I'm always constantly looking for builders who can clearly define and explain that to me. So that's one. Coming from the Hong Kong side, right, doing a lot of the work with the regulators there. Standards really comes from the value chain of the different market actors, so market activities. So standards should go around different intermediaries and their market activities and how that relates to ZKP. So if we have that proper framework, and it's a challenge to the Vietnamese government for this, leading up for there's 6 months left for the law to go live, any type of VATP regime or anything like that, look at activities-based approach, tie that back to ZKP, and then start from there. Don't go the other way, because then you'll get confused and go down a rabbit hole you can't get out of.
Jeffrey, I've got a question for you. So you work in Hong Kong on the foundation, you work closely with the Hong Kong regulators, right? Can you help explain to me, like, are there even like almost like country associations kind of working together a bit more formally? I'm sure informally you're talking to other people, and,
Yeah, Hong Kong is actually very interesting because we were a crypto hub and then not a crypto hub and then wanted to be a
competing with
crypto hub.
Singapore.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's kind of like we were there, we lost it, and then we want to get back again. It's like losing a championship, back-to-back champions. But no, we're trying to get back to the proper state. And to answer your question more directly, honestly, there isn't a clear pathway of people working with the government. Because Hong Kong, by nature, different than Singapore, is very consultative. Whereas Singapore is very prescriptive. Like you get a flight manual pretty much on how to run a crypto business in Singapore. But in Hong Kong, it's like, ooh, tell us what we think we should put into the next ordinance. And so because of that, you end up having a slew of associations coming. So the Web3 Harbor, we focus only on Web3. And the way to address this challenge, we break it up into working groups. And one working group that we have, obviously, policy and regulation. But the other working group is around basically privacy and technology, and then how that relates to funds and education, et cetera. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I guess just one extra piece of context for some people here. There was a time where ZK Sync tried to copyright the word ZK. So I just want to throw it out there so they, we can shame them. We keep shaming them. But I think Alex ended up giving it to the EF, which would be my opinion on who should be leading at least the approach on how the approach or the standards of testing. This is how you should be doing it to make sure that data is protected, make sure that everything is open source, make sure that there's easy for people to have an options to fork away from malicious attempt at capturing, right? Because there will always be attempts at capturing from any authorities or or even big like big corporations, right? They're big enough, they own distributions enough, like Facebook. They're like, oh, I think this is the best way, right? Then they'll be able to capture everyone into could be a proprietary solution. Right?
And for context, Victor works closely with the EF.
Now, I remember a lot of sins of a lot of people in this ecosystem.
Long blockchain history here.
It's all on X. You cannot wash yourself. Anyway, let's go to the next questions. So next questions will be around usability. So privacy tech historically comes with a lot of trade-off, especially in user experience. So my question for the panelists here is, tell me, are we there yet? Are we there in terms of we are confident that we can onboard not even my moms or dads or grandmothers. I just want the average person to be able to use this. You can go on the street right now and just onboard anyone on the street into ZK Tech. Are we there yet?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead. I think I believe in history repeats itself, right? I think everyone here remembers when they connected to internet with a modem dial-in with like beep, beep, beep sound, and then that's how we actually got adopted to internet. There was a huge learning curve, but we did it by like when the technology starts growing. We are there at the same place even with crypto and ZK, where things are moving. Nobody needs to understand the complexities and the circuits that are written behind. But then, as a user, is it easy to use? And at the same time, all these devices are getting computationally fast, which means you can generate proofs even faster time, right? Which kind of makes it easy that, okay, now there is this tech and hardware support, man. where users are using, how can we abstract as a founder or somebody who wants to build a company there, abstract this technology, make sure that everyone gets used. I'm pretty sure like hundreds of people, thousands and millions of people don't even understand WebSockets or TCP/IP, but then they're interacting with it every day. So that's where I think tech abstraction and adoption will kind of come in.
I think from the identity layer side, right? As you said, like dial-up, whatever. I like to think of it as like email. When email first came out, it was so powerful. Like I can send you an email whenever, but it's not conducive like Telegram, WhatsApp, or Yellow or etc. And so, how do you get to that level of ease of use and onboarding? I think that's also very important, and that's on the identity layer. In the standards that we talked about, we didn't actually talk about the different standards of verifiable credentials that are even out there. We're not even talking about cryptographically encrypting those VCs, but the VCs themselves are not even standardized. And so I think that's a really important, another starting point to really talk about is the onboarding experience. We need to first figure out which VCs we want to standardize and then use ZKP to standardize that layer.
I'd like to respond in kind of two levels. So on the consumer side, Victor, your question is about ZKPs user adoption or privacy user adoption?
So it would be because, well, privacy. I was looking at the angle how to protect themselves from both.
Yeah, but most people don't care, right?
Exactly.
They're-
People
yeah.
are happy to give out their ideas. Like, oh, it's okay. No, they cannot steal money from me until their money actually got stolen.
Yeah,
It's like,
so I would say that's like not even, I mean, I believe in privacy, that's why I'm in the space, but I think the average person doesn't care. So I think the question I would like to answer there is that, will the people or institutions that we think have the greatest need for privacy, which at ZK Verify and Horizen, we think will be the institutions, the whales, who want to prevent front running, let's say in DeFi, right? Will they actually come on board? I mean, our hypothesis is yes, but at the same time, it's still taking a very, very long while. So for us right now, the user experience has nothing to do with retail, at least at this point in time. We are dealing with the ZKP side in identity as well. We're doing a lot of identity, right? But back to the topic of stable coins and money, for us, we're focusing on the institutions first, and it's not there yet even.
In my opinion, at least, like I feel like privacy is a feature, but I was talking to Gwen earlier, it was like it's a default feature to have, right? I think that's the perspective we kind of have to build applications going forward, considering this is a feature and it exists just like another WhatsApp and Instagram status sort of way.
And I do think that this point is important because the Web 2 internet was built without these privacy thinking or standards, right? So we are blockchain is relatively old now, right? But we're still at a cusp where we have the chance to shape this hopefully new rails for the world. And I completely agree that it should be a default feature that people can choose. The user, like the average user, whether they care about it, it's another education problem. That's for later on.
Yeah, I think we can come up with a new HTTP code for exactly this application where you can request and okay, I want to make sure that user is actually above a certain age, or are they actually who they claim to be? And then it's the HTTP code returns, and then it could be standardized into the wider adoptions globally. Right? Sounds good. Well, just like how Base they did the whole 402, I think. Yeah. What was that? Whichever it is. The new HTTP code from Base for micropayments.
Yep. Anyway,
For last questions, it's going to be, to me, this last question is a curveball. It's a question on ethics. And so it's a question that's about an angle that's rarely talked in most panels, and essentially about revolving around the dollar's hegemony, how basically 99.99% of stablecoin right now is USD. So in regions with very strict capital control, wing wing, and a weaker local currency, wing wing, and so privacy preserving stablecoins could allow things like ZK peer-to-peer can allow on ramping almost anonymously and trustlessly. So if there's a high usage of dollar denominated stablecoins, you can potentially unstabilize the local currency. So imagine everyone starts saving in USDs instead of the local currency. So then the local banks would have a hard time having liquidity to lend out to business and everything. So what are your thoughts on this ethical dilemma, where you want freedom for the people, but then it's kind of like there's a stark contrast with the demand of the local economy? It's a really hard, yeah.
Looks like the curve. Nobody wants to take the curve.
So I'm a U.S. citizen, so let me start with that first.
That's quite relevant.
And which I guess gives me the ability to criticize the Genius Act. And I also live in Hong Kong, so we just released our own stablecoin ordinance called LEAP. And you compare the two, right? So U.S. Treasuries promoting U.S. debts, U.S. dollar hegemony, etc. But large organizations need to have large amounts of capital to be able to participate. But a lot of people can come in. It's not as hard as Hong Kong to actually get a license. And I challenge that, is that ethical, right? The fact that you're actually allowing the big banks to actually use technology that's been built up by the hard work of a lot of builders in these communities to secure positions for capital markets. So that's one thing to consider. Likewise, on the other side, and I'm not saying Hong Kong is better or anything, we have our own challenges. But the Hong Kong stablecoin ordinance will allow you to create any stablecoin denominated by any currency, as long as you meet the requirements of custody, compliance, regulatory oversight, and reporting, etc. And I think places like Vietnam, jurisdictions like Vietnam, would partner up with that stablecoin regime at the same time figuring out how to participate with the Genius Act, like Tether, etc. So I think the market will naturally figure itself out as to address the concern that you have with ethics. But optionality is important. Without optionality, then that's going to be very, very problematic.
Yeah, I think I agree too. It's just that especially finance, like Gwen said, like it's not something that like it's a micro and macroeconomics, like everything defines in it. Like, so when a country's currency is like getting weaker or stronger is not something that we as a technical and like people who are leading businesses can control, but we can actually make help regulators and people who can take these decisions and guide them in the right path. As a technical person, I can think saying that, okay, these are the technologies that exist out there. We can help you figure out, but bring in the right side of people from your side and say, oh, this technology exists. How can we actually go ahead and use? Like, for example, ZK proving for reserves can actually help in proving that these certain banks hold certain amount of currency. It exactly, like even in India, like India is exploring it actively, how exactly we can go for it. And countries like Indonesia is also trying to, boost their local currency in the sense of showcasing there is a strength and trust that is given out, and this is what we can do.
So this question is also about liquidity, right? So to the point that you made, if more and more people are saving in USDT, USDC, what have you, then there's less savings in their local currency. So it's about that. So if I were a country, right, I mean, thinking very simplistically because I'm not a country, I would want to make sure that there is liquidity both ways. So just focus on that point. I think will help the country think about less defensive, because right now I think countries are defensive, right? When stable coins are there, if they are from if the country with the currency that's rapidly, in rapid inflation, even more important for them to figure it out. But I would think about solving the liquidity problem, which then is solving bridging, standardization, which is again, it goes back to one circle, to a whole panel. So I have no solutions there.
Sounds good. There you go. That's the end of this panel. Does you have all your answers up here? If you have any more questions, feel free to meet any of these panelists and just grill them on what you think is the correct answer. And yeah, thank you so much for joining today's panel, and have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Rồi, xin cảm ơn các diễn giả và điều phối viên của phiên vừa rồi ạ.